Okay, hi, welcome to the overview of CCA Grade 12, which is called, which is 0999 in the Moodle shell. It's a combination of 0981, 0991, as you've registered for one half or the other, or some students have registered for both at the same time. So I'm just going to share my screen. And we'll go over the course, this kind of basics of the course. Okay, so this is, I'm assuming you were able to get onto the course. So this is kind of what it looks like for a student. I've changed my designation to student, so you're seeing the same screen that you would hear as you would see as a student. So just sort of a quick overview, introduction, grammar and editing. We don't do any grammar and editing lessons in this course, but there is a reference book for you to use that has different topics. So if I give you some feedback whereby you're having some specific issues, you can look it up here and get some exercises, or I can also provide some as well, but there is a book here. So our grammar is really self-study. Information about plagiarism, making sure you use your own words, and if you're quoting a text that you quote it properly. You don't want to run into any plagiarisms issues. But you know, sometimes it can be accidental. So conventions of academic writing is what you're going to look at first. There's a few reading assignments, reading texts, and then there's an assignment to summarize the academic writing. So I don't want you to spend a lot of time on this. It's not worth any points. It's just to show that you've done the reading. So 1 page at the very most. So 0999 is made up of 4 sections. 0981 is short story and poetry, and 0991 is novel and film. Again, they used to be divided up, but we put them all into one Moodle shell now. Sometimes I tell students, you know, if you want to start looking at novel, we can talk about that. And maybe you want to start reading your novel as you're doing some of the other sections, or other people just want to go in order and start with the short story. That's totally up to you. If you are looking at starting your novel study, please be aware that I don't teach all the novels on the list here. I tend to focus on contemporary novels just because it tends to open up students to provide their own take on things in an easier way than some of the novels that there's a lot written about it, although you do want to have some reference material as well. But we can talk about that, you know, as you come to the point where you're choosing your novel. But the first section is short story. And each, the short stories are divided up into different elements. So the first element is character, and then setting, theme, symbol, and finally irony. So there's 2 assignments in each section. The first assignment is like a little warm-up, and you're going to do assignment 1 is revealing character. And I should say, in the course, in each section and towards the end and the beginning, there's reference material as well to help you in your studies, but you're always welcome to Moodle message me. That's the Moodle message button up here, or you can email me, and I will respond as quickly as I can to your questions. And you're always welcome to set up a Zoom or a telephone meeting anytime you want to go over your work or to talk about the stories, that talk about, you know, scheduling your assignments, coming up with deadlines. Some students really like to have imposed deadlines because it is a self-study class, so a self-paced class. So sometimes, you know, it's easy to kind of drift off and forget to do assignments and get busy. But you're always welcome to check in with me anytime. So the first assignment is revealing character. This is a little warm up. It's only worth 2 points, so please don't spend a lot of time on it. It actually used to be just no points at all. So, but we changed it just to get students to do the assignment. But yeah, I don't want you to spend a lot of time on it. It's self-explanatory. It's quite straightforward. And the response journals, each section, each element of the short story has a journal response. The reason we do journals rather than formal paragraphs or essays, although you'll come to that later on, is we're just looking for you to give us some, just your ideas really, and not worry too much about formal structure. The first element, character, we allow students to do a draft first to give feedback, so you get an idea of what what's expected of you, and then you get a final draft. The other elements, there is only one. There's only one chance, I guess, of submitting your journal. But if I find students are way off the mark, I'll get them to redo it anyway, so, and give them feedback. So it's not really anything to worry too much about. So I just want to click on this and see what's, so it's 2 stories. So you just choose one story to work on. Here's the evaluation criteria, what we're looking for. Where it says additionally, but not mandatory, yeah, I don't really place a lot of emphasis on this, because I find if students are feeling like they have to make connections between their life and the story, whether it's character or setting or what have you, sometimes it feels a little bit forced. And so you can if you want, but I'm not like too fussy on that one. However, short story journal, this is it. Questions. So each story, again, you choose one story. There's questions on character, questions on character, questions on setting when you get to that. Those questions are not, you don't have to answer them, but they're in place of a lecture, I guess. So it gives you some idea of what I'm looking for. And these are in the Moodle section, but they're actually questions that I designed. So it gives you an idea of maybe what I'm looking for as an instructor, but you're not, you don't have to be married to those questions. It's just kind of a jumping off point. So I'm really interested in seeing your observations. So yeah, so pay attention to the evaluation criteria and the questions depending on which story you're doing. And there's a resource here as well to help you with your journals. So once you're done your assignment, then you click Add Submission, and then you submit. And I haven't submitted because I'm not a student, but just make sure you drag your file into here, or you can grab your file from your computer. And I think this is where students get a little tripped up. Sometimes they forget to save changes, because if you don't click the Save Changes, I won't get a notification that you've submitted, because the submission won't have gone through. And in fact, when I'm giving you feedback, I have to do the same thing. If I want to drop a file, I've given you some feedback, drop a file in, I've given you your grade. If I don't click Save Changes, then you don't get the notification and it doesn't go in. So that's a really important one to look at. So once you've done the journals, the final element, irony, is similar, but instead of doing an assignment where you take your time and do your journal response, you actually have a timed on-demand writing assignment. It's still a journal, but it's like a little quiz, but you get quite a bit of time to do it. So try not to worry about that. And the final part of the short story section is your essay. So you'll be doing a compare contrast. So you'll be choosing 2 of the stories. Again, they're stories that you've already, some of them you've studied. So they're all the stories in the earlier sections. You choose 2 stories and you choose, where is it? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of resources here for you. How to write a literary short story, a literary essay, and compare contrast. So you're going to develop a thesis statement and outline, and it gives you the topics. So you choose one of these topics, and then you do a thesis statement and an outline. But let me know, I would highly recommend letting me know which question you're doing and which 2 stories you're thinking of comparing, because some of the short stories lend themselves to the topic better than others to each topic. And you may as well make it a little bit easy on yourself, rather than, some of them don't really fit into the questions. So yeah, just drop me a Moodle message or an email. Moodle's better. I can really keep track of the threads of conversations with each student. But yeah, when you come to that, just let me know which stories you're thinking of doing and which question. So that's the short story section. I won't go through each section. It'll be a little too daunting for now. Poetry section, I'll just say there's a lot of small assignments, not worth a lot of points each, 2 points, 3 points, but they add up, of course. But we try to make the poetry as accessible as possible to students, because the idea, just the word poetry, sometimes can be really a little bit daunting. People are like, oh my God, poetry, I don't know anything about poetry. But just don't freak out, that's all I'm saying. But poetry, yeah, lots of little assignments, and then eventually you'll do an essay, and you'll do a journal, and you'll do a timed journal on that, novel, and then finally film. More study resources here, and then we ask at the end that you give us feedback, and each piece of feedback is worth 2 points, so it's worth doing. One on each section, I believe. So there's one on short story, one on poetry, one on novel, and one on film. I think that's pretty much everything. Oh yeah, when you're doing your, well, anything really, when you're doing your journals or you're doing an essay, literary essay, literary analysis of any kind, it's always important to use quotes to illustrate your points.